Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Podcast. Coming here with a little mini episode for everyone so we can get something out for Thursday Night Football. So that means I have Levi here, my residential fantasy football turned sports betting guru, because he didn't quite realize, I don't think, how effective he would be at picking player props just based on his knowledge of fantasy football, which means obviously he has a knowledge of individual players, their matchups, their skill sets, how defenses are going to be constructed to either stop really good ones or whatever, man. Like, too much time on his hands? No, but just spare time being spent watching film of football players? Yeah, probably. Let's talk about the ticket. I'm going to pull it up on screen so that we can just get right to it, because we've already spent, 4-ish minutes keeping people from like, all right, I just really want the bet. So the bet here at this point, I'll tell everyone for you here. Pulling it up on DraftKings, we've got over 18.5 receiving yards for Mr. James Cook. This is a 5-legger. That's the first one. 50-plus yards for Stephon Diggs, alternate receiving yards there for him. The 18.5, just to be clear, those are receiving yards for James Cook.
Yes.
The third leg is Dalton Kincaid, alternate receiving yards, 40-plus yards on that. Josh Allen is the fourth leg, alternate passing yards, 225 or more. And lastly, we have also James Cook, alternate rushing and receiving combined. That's only available on DraftKings, between DraftKings and FanDuel especially. You're not going to get that on FanDuel is what I'm trying to say. So that gives us plus 305 on our money there. And I believe DraftKings told you that the odds changed in your favor, but they didn't. They're still 305. So whatever.
It just said it changed, but I don't see a change between my original ticket and my updated ticket. So
yeah, no, you're just a new guy that to them that they're trying to like fake promote to. So who knows what that was about? But
yeah, I have no idea, man. I have no idea.
DraftKings, please sponsor this podcast. All right, getting into why you chose that, so that those who are still listening, because they would like to, be reassured that this is a good bet and aren't just blindly tailing you. Let's start with the first leg. Let's just do all James Cook at first, right?
Sure.
Which, by the way, if you're Googling James Cook for any reason, you're going to need to be more specific than just James Cook, because there's a former revolutionary man named James Cook who's very famous, I learned about. But the James Cook that plays on the Buffalo Bills, brother to Dalvin, what's the deal with each of those? We got 18.5 rushing, and then you also added another 32 yards for the rushing and receiving combined.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. The way I'm looking at that is the 18.5 receiving yards, like he doesn't need a whole bunch of targets to get there. Like, for whatever else James Cook is, like he does gain yards and he's super efficient with them and he gets a lot of yards per touch. So the way that I'm looking at this also is I'm looking at the Tampa Bay defense, which is a solid defensive unit, but defenses and schemes are built around individuals, right? And to me, the fact that Vita Vea is he may play tonight, but he's not 100%. A lot of what they are able to do defensively, right, is built around the fact that they have a massive goddamn nose tackle, which just eats up the entire, interior offensive line. It lets you send pressure. It lets you play man. It lets you play zone. It lets you really do whatever you want. It lets your linebackers play in space. But when you don't have that, and linebackers who are used to playing in space don't get to play in space, you get running lanes, you get mishaps in the flat, you get all these kinds of things that you don't normally get, right? So, one, James Cook is very explosive. Like, he could do that on one reception, right? I also happen to think he's probably going to grab 2 or 3 balls tonight, and I think he'll get there, right? If he gets, let's pretend he gets to, 20-ish receiving yards, seems unlikely he won't hit 30-ish rushing yards to me. Right? Like, that seems as much a lock as anything can be a lock. And the way I set up the parlay was like, there's a bunch of good alternate lines that to me all look extremely likely based on what I am guessing this flow of the game is going to be. Right? So Tampa Bay does have a good pass rush. So Tampa Bay's good pass rush, though, yields I might have to dump this into the flats or throw a quick ball to the tight end. Well, there's only one tight end tonight. So that's why I like Dalton Kincaid over 40. And I like, a few dump offs to James Cook turning into some yards.
Yep. Yeah. The thing about James Cook's rushing is I think the point that you're making about Vita Vea, obviously that strengthens the rushing pick here for him to go over essentially, according to this, essentially 30 plus, right? 32-ish, 33 yards, whatever, however you want to split it up. Doesn't matter for the rushing and receiving combined.
Right.
The receiving prop also I like even more because I don't know, you just can't get the Bills to run. Like give the Bills an excuse not to run, and they're like, great. Wonderful.
And that's why I didn't take a straight rushing prop.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't want to take a rushing prop on a team that's intentionally trying to avoid running the football
all the time.
Right. And additionally, I mean, I think look, Todd Bowles likes to blitz. I mean, I'm a Jets fan, and I do remember his stupid vanilla defenses that the blitzes were super predictable. He's not terrible like he was then. But those blitzes are going to yield some situations where you can't account for everyone. And when you have to get rid of the ball quick, it's not going to be deep down the seam to Gabe Davis, and it's not going to be a 20-yard out to Stephon Diggs. I'm sure there'll be plenty of those, right?
Yeah.
But all you really need is really 2 or 3 balls dumped off to Cook, and all he has to do is break one of them for 12, 15 yards, and you're basically there.
Yeah. So, the Cook stuff is easy as hell to justify, in my opinion. I was definitely targeting some James Cook stuff tonight, especially just, the way that backfield's panning out, the way that Latavius Murray's not panning out, and that really at this point just leaves Cook, as we've seen. So I think it's good as far as usage goes as well. The other leg that you mentioned, the Kincaid one makes perfect sense. Like as soon as Dawson Knox isn't in there, I'm kind of just like, oh, great. What's Kincaid's number? And if you can get that at 40 to add to your parlay, what's the core number there? Do you know what the original line was before you moved it with the alt
on Kincaid?
Yeah. Like how much more was it? I'm just kind of wondering. Probably around 45.
I want to say it was 45 and half.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, I want to say it was 45 and a half. So like if you took here's the thing,
it's 39 and a half. So you actually just got it at the normal line. You got 40 plus, which is the over 39 and a half. You just took it as in the same game parlay. They just phrase it differently.
Oh, they just phrase it differently. So yeah. So I mean, I even all of these guys like natural lines, I didn't really hate any of them.
Right.
But putting them all together, like Josh Allen's passing yards was, I want to say 263 and a half.
Yeah. Right.
Do I think he's going to get there? Yeah, I do think he's going to get there.
Okay.
But if I can put a parlay together where you're getting 4-1 and I can use all these like essentially tease down alternate lines to get there, I'm very happy doing that.
For sure. And obviously, part of this too, so we're clear we know what we're doing here. Like part of the parlay too is like making sure that the odds line up, right? There's parlay calculators and such, so to make sure that if you don't have any of these sort of models that some of us are using to make sure that we get the right ratio when we do a parlay based on what the original lines of each of the individual legs are, for those of you still following, you want to make sure that you use that calculator to get the right, to derive the right number. And 3-1 for things, especially the Stephon Diggs one, which I'll move to finally too before the Allen one, because like Diggs is at 85 and a half, 86 and a half. So taking him at 50 is like, dude, Stephon Diggs, death taxes and 5 receptions for 50 yards. That's
thank you. Like, and that's listen,
floor.
You could go ahead, like if you're looking at this and you feel confident, right, that like Josh Allen's going to have more passing yards or Diggs is going to get 70 yards. Like, go ahead and use those alternate lines if you want to. You know what I mean? There was an alternate line for Allen at 250, and there was even one at 275 if you want to, go batshit with it. But for me, I'm looking at him like if I can put 5 things together that I think are all highly likely, right, that would normally I'd be getting terrible odds on, and I stick them all together, and now I got good odds. I mean, that sounds good to me.
Totally. And there's also a different way of thinking, which is like once you start getting into how strongly you feel about a specific game script, right? Like, and sometimes you feel really comfortable about a game script later. So I might even recommend this to you when you're like on high about something. Like the idea of taking two things and parlaying them together that are alt lines that bring you pretty nice odds individually to come together to bring you up 100 to 1,
Sure.
70 to 1, 80 to 1. That's when it's another way to go, but just really ride it. Like, let's say that you really think, for instance, Geno Smith in his game is going to get his rushing prop is at 13.5. And you're like, all right, well, let's take Geno's alt rushing at 40 plus yards for, because you think he's going to get literally 10 rushes. This is totally hypothetical. I don't think,
of course.
although I do think Geno's going to get flushed out of the pocket. I don't necessarily think that he's going to run for too many yards. Either way, like, you get my point. So you take Geno at 40 plus, and then you take like, you take Tyreek Hill. Well, he's a ridiculous example because his core number is at 100 yards. But let's say that his core number is at 75 yards receiving.
Right.
You take 150 if they offer it. Or you take 2 touchdowns plus for 2 different guys, which is like plus 650
Sure.
times. That's also just I just want to make clear, like, that's another way to do it. But like, this is a good bankroll building method as well. If you can get 3 to 1 on something that happens at 80% of the time, let's say, in these scenarios.
And look, I'm being honest, given that, like, I am personally only going live with this very recently, I am taking more of the approach of, like, build it up a little bit slowly rather than take big swings, right? So I definitely see, like, the reason in what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you wanted to, I don't know, take the combined yardage for James Cook and push it all the way to 70 or 80, right? And do stuff, I would be okay with that. Like, I suspect he's going to have a good game. They're finally getting him, more involved in the offense, as he should be.
Right.
Normally you don't draft running backs in the second round to, not
keep him on the bench,
use them. And honestly, Latavius Murray is basically there for pass blocking. I mean, that's basically why he's there. And someone seems to have informed James Cook of that, so he may, actually pass block.
Maybe he'll get better at it. Yeah, we'll see. Do you want to touch briefly on the Allen leg of this, and we'll get you out of here, get this bet to everyone?
Yeah, I mean, that's real easy. How often does he not throw for 225 yards?
Not very often.
Also, if we're going to hit the overs on everything else, we're probably going to have to see him throw for 225 yards. Like, it seems unlikely he throws for $170 and we make any of these other numbers.
All those dudes are getting their numbers.
Yeah. So
it's a positive correlation that you might as well add in there.
Yeah. And I also like where you have situations where, like, everyone's very down on the Bills right now.
Yeah.
And my suspicion is that they're still pretty good at football.
On offense, for sure.
Like, also, if the shit that's designed isn't working, there are few quarterbacks in the league more willing to go straight playground than Josh Allen.
Fair.
Like, there's him, there's Mahomes, there's Lamar Jackson. I'm not sure who else I would, but he is more than happy to be like, hey, fucking cover everyone for 11 seconds. I dare you.
I'm happy to do
I mean, it's so.
He broke some tackles last week that were like, Jesus, I forgot you were a quarterback. You look like a tight end.
Because people forget he's the same size as Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's big, dumb, Wyoming country strong. Like, I mean.
Yeah.
It was amazing to me when he was coming out and people were like, oh, he completed 52% of his passes. And no one was open. God, do you know who he was throwing to? He only completed 50%. He threw away 20% of his pass attempts out of bounds on purpose, guys.
Right. Yeah, I like the 225.5. So that gets us to the plus 305. I'll just recap this for everyone and get you out of here on that. So for the 5 legs, you want to read it off for us real quick?
James Cook over 18.5 receiving yards. Stephon Diggs over 50 receiving yards. Dalton Kincaid over 40 receiving yards. Josh Allen over 225 passing yards. And James Cook 50 plus rushing plus receiving yards.
Money. All right, man. Appreciate your time as always. We're gonna continue to man. We've been flying on these Thursday night picks, these island games like we call them. Very very nicely done. These primetime ones. There are a lot of unders coming in these primetime games, but actually Thursday night football has been higher
Has it
scoring.
been?
Yeah, outside of that Chiefs Broncos nasty 19
I'm
game.
pretty sure Amazon after last year was like, "Hey, listen, I don't know if you know, we gave you like $3 billion. Stop giving us the Jaguars versus the Jets. Like for real, you have to give us something." And I mean,
100%. I'll take the conspiracy.
games.
I'm not gonna ride this too hard because I know how much you're susceptible to going down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theory. But my buddy brought up the idea that even Goodell came in and maybe he was bumped and nudged by Amazon to be like, hey
Well,
refs, these are offensive games now on Thursday night. No more defensive penalties. And then we did see like what could have been like a 33-31 affair between the Saints and the Jags. So there's something to the idea that these games are going to have a little bit more scoring
the
to them.
NFL is not the NBA, but the only reason is because there's too many fucking people on the field and the ball is shaped funny. Like
Yeah,
it's the old dude. If they, man, if they
100%.
could call up Tim Donaghy and be like, "Can you ref right now?" He'd be like, "Absolutely, I can fuck this game up for you all."
100%. Love that.
Yeah. I mean, look, listen. Once they allowed like actual gambling entities to be partners in the business, like, I mean, you're gonna get what you're gonna get. It's still fun to watch. They still have to perform. It's not WWE. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
not.
But
And by the way, if there is a scriptwriter and they scripted Rogers tears his Achilles on the fourth play, I will do
fired.
horrible, horrible things.
They should be fired as a scriptwriter. They just killed off the main character in the opening section of the show.
Well, fuck, he's not Ned Stark. Leave him alone.
Even Ned Stark made it to like the 8th episode.
He got the whole fucking first season.
We're totally off now, but I appreciate you, man. We're 3-1. I'm gonna hit this as well with Lave so that we can make sure that people get some money off of it as well, and we'll go from there. But until we do see you next, which I think will hopefully be next week, try to get another Thursday one out, and I think maybe I'll get you on for Monday. We'll see how that goes. I had Jenna on for Monday the other day. She did pretty well, but I like mixing it up. But you've been really good to the people, so we'll keep bringing them the money, which will hopefully be soon. And until that time happens, happy betting.